It's Clemmy from the NARM Clinic, and this week I'm talking about IBS because April is IBS Awareness Month. Now, I've written a longer blog post on my website about the topic, all about exactly what IBS is, the fact that you can have IBS and IBD, so Irritable Bowel Syndrome and Inflammatory Bowel Disease at the same time, also about the diagnostic process as well. But what I want to touch on in the video, just to keep it short, is what happens next after diagnosis, because this is often when people come and see me, and also I want to offer you some tips to help you with your IBS if it's something that you suffer with. So after you've had your diagnosis with your GP of IBS, you may be given some general diet guidelines or nutrition changes, and in some circumstances you may also be offered medication, things like antispasmodics, which help to relieve cramping, and antidepressants for the pain, also perhaps Imodium to reduce diarrhea if that's something, or perhaps soluble fibre for constipation. But many people, despite these things, continue to experience ongoing problems, and that is because we're not tackling the underlying cause of the digestive symptoms. So just because you've been diagnosed with IBS, it doesn't mean that that has to be the end of the road in terms of investigations. Now I'm going to take you through that a bit more. So these treatments that I've described, the medication, can be really, really helpful in relieving symptoms, but what they don't do is correct the underlying cause. So the thing, whatever that is, that's causing the symptoms in the first place, it's just kind of putting a sticky plaster over it and masking the symptoms rather than looking at what's causing it. So usually all digestive symptoms have some kind of root cause, and they can be down to one or a number of different factors. This can be things like imbalance of bacteria in our intestines, often also known as dysbiosis, something called SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, so that's just bacteria in the wrong place in our intestines. Parasites, also food intolerances, stress, poor diet, lack of sleep, etc. The list goes on. There can be loads and loads of different reasons why someone is experiencing IBS symptoms. And it's only when we look into the symptoms a little bit further that we're able to get to the root cause. And then when we know what's causing them, we're able to tackle that root cause, and then we can significantly improve the quality of life of the person with IBS. So I really worry that so many patients with IBS are often dismissed, just because when you have IBS, it often doesn't develop into anything more serious or life-threatening. So we're given a diagnosis of IBS and then sent on our way. But the truth is that it can be hugely debilitating as a condition, and it can really rule your life and dramatically decrease our quality of life. So many clients come to me with a diagnosis of IBS and feeling pretty crappy, excuse the pun, and just worried that there's nothing that they can do and they're going to have to live the rest of their life feeling like that. And I often also get lots of people with IBD coming to me in remission, saying, oh, I'm still experiencing loads of problems, but I've been told I'm in remission and I don't know why. And you can have the two, as I said, side by side. But you don't have to just live with it. There's always underlying reasons, as I said, and we just need to find out what they are. So we may need to dig a little deeper, have a look at those symptoms, and we can do that by having a really in-depth look at your medical history, your current diet, your lifestyle patterns, and have a look and see if there's anything in there that might be causing problems. But then sometimes we may need to do further investigations as well, looking at things like stool tests, to have a look at and dig a little bit deeper, and that would look at things like the bacteria or parasites that might be causing problems. But to get you started, I wanted to offer you my 10 simple tips to help with your IBS. So number one is keeping a food and symptom diary. So even if it's just for a really short period of time, it can be a really, really helpful tool. I always get all of my clients before I see them to write a 3-day food diary for me. And what I want you to do as well when you do that is to write your symptoms and other factors as well, like stress, sleep, etc., alongside that, and see whether you can notice any patterns. Number 2 is really important. Once you've written your food diary, if you think that there are certain foods and things that may be causing problems, it's really important for you to get help from a nutritionist before you start excluding big food groups or following really, really restrictive diets. Because it may actually do you more harm than good, and you put yourself at risk of nutrient deficiencies if you don't do it properly. And also following various very restrictive diets for a long time, things like the low FODMAP diet, can actually be detrimental after a period of time. Number 3 is looking at your eating patterns. So if you're someone who eats really big meals and then you get problems, looking at those eating patterns and then adjusting them accordingly. Maybe you're someone who does better with smaller meals more often. So having a look at that can be really important as well. And if you're someone, again, who constantly grazes, maybe you're not giving your digestive system the break that it needs. So maybe looking at that as well and having proper breaks between your meals could be really helpful. Number 4 is mindful eating, and this is something that I covered in my video last week, so I'm not going to touch on it too much, but go and have a look back at that, and also have a look at the blog, read all about mindful eating and why it's so important. Number 5 is chewing, and that goes in with mindful eating as well, and I've covered that in my last video, but looking at chewing each mouthful around 20 to 30 times, so it's a really, really kind of paced consistency before we swallow it, because actually undigested food can cause us problems further down. Number 6 is looking at managing stress. So stress can have a huge impact on our digestive health, but also on our IBD as well, and IBS. So looking at managing that stress is really important. So looking at things like meditation, exercise, and even things like reading a book, having a bath, etc. can be really helpful. Also, breathing techniques in terms of managing stress can be really, really helpful. So breathing in for 4 seconds and out for 6 seconds can really help to switch us away from our kind of fight or flight mode and into our rest and digest mode. Number 7 is fibre. Now, if you have IBS, then fibre might be an issue for you. So perhaps you're not having enough, or perhaps there's different types of fibres that are causing you problems. So we should be having around 30 grams of fibre a day, but on average in the UK, we're having around 17 to 18 grams. But fibre is super important for the kind of colony of bacteria that live in our intestines that help to keep us healthy and can help our bowels to keep moving. So if we're not providing those microbes with the food that they need to thrive, then it can cause us problems. And also fibre helps things move through our digestive system. Increasing fibre may help some people with IBS, but may make some people with IBS worse. And particularly certain types of fibres in foods like garlic and onions might not be helpful for some people. And if this is you, then it's really important to get help and guidance from a nutrition professional. Number 8 is try yoga. So studies have shown the effectiveness of yoga in helping to control IBS symptoms and digestive symptoms. So this is something that I would certainly encourage you to do. So if you've never tried yoga before, then look on YouTube, have a look. There's lots and lots of different yoga instructors on there. My favourite one is Sophie Deer. She has some great YouTube videos, so give it a go. Number 9 is avoid tight clothing. Now, this might sound like a funny one, but tight or restrictive clothing around our tummy may actually restrict blood flow and also the movement of our digestive tract. And also people with IBS and IBD may also be more sensitive around that area. So if you wear tight clothing, then you might feel it even more and feel a bit more uncomfortable. So try avoiding tight jeans or trousers and instead wear more loose-fitting clothing. My favourites are dungarees, because you then wear the weight over your shoulders and not around your middle, and also my leggings as well, or like high-waisted jeans, so that you're not cutting off your abdomen kind of halfway up, that you're having it at the top here. And number 10, the last one, is to get help. So if you are struggling with your IBS, then don't suffer in silence. Seek help. Because it's out there. So there's so much that we can do to help support you. It's never a one size fits all. So what works for one person might not work for another, but you need help and support to help you find out what is going to work for you and to help support you and what your underlying causes are for your IBS, and then you can tackle them properly. I see so many people who wish they'd got help sooner, and wish that they hadn't lived and suffered in silence for years. So please do seek help if you are suffering with these problems. Anyway, I hope that's helpful, and we'll see you again next week.